Welcome to Los Compas Lounge, a PSA for brown men.
We are your hosts. This is Raul.
This Javier.
My name is Reuven, and this is a podcast about brown men talking about issues that matter to you. We talk about things that we don't usually talk about in the brown communities. We're just three regular compas sharing our experiences to inspire positive change. Compa, pull up a seat. We have one ready for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why the hate? I know, right? I mean, when we started talking about this topic, it made me realize that uh, hate is a powerful word and a powerful emotion. But as a youngster, fuck, I hated school. I'm a straight up tell you, man. I hated, dreaded waking up in the morning, going to school. I resisted every single moment. I used to even fake being sick just to get out of going to elementary school. And I had my little cousin Aldo. Him and I, we were real close. We were growing up. We would spend time at each other's house most of the time. We would babysit him and shit like that. But he was in elementary, and then I was towards the end of elementary, and we used to, screw around as cousins do all the time. But we had the same similar feelings. And we even went to the extent of trying to find out food combination that would give us our own food poisoning or give us the runs and stuff like that. I know, it was crazy. So we came up with watermelon, fried chicken, and warm milk.
Oh my
That
goodness!
sounds,
How
that
old were
sounds
you
like
guys?
a potent combination right there.
But
How old were you guys when you guys did this
I was probably
concoction?
in the sixth grade, fifth grade, and he was probably third grade, fourth grade. He was a couple years young, a couple grades behind me.
Yeah, I
But just
remember Aldo.
yeah, just for the fact that we actually would figure out how do we sabotage our bodies so my mom or our parents wouldn't be like, oh no, you're faking
faking.
you're faking it, I'm gonna take you to the doctor. Because when your mom would say, oh, I'll take you to the doctor, suddenly you're feeling way better. And that was the case for me. It's like, mom, and they're like, mom, my head hurts, my stomach hurts. And after a while, mom catches on. It's like, no, okay, if you're feeling that bad, you know we're gonna take you to the doctor. I'm gonna cancel. I'm not gonna go to work. And I'm like, oh shoot, okay. I'm actually feeling better, and here I am. But I think going back to this word hate, as a youngster in elementary, you think about, at least I'm trying to reflect back, that insecurities, having to deal with people that you probably don't like, or even maybe girls you do like, or maybe you feel stupid or dumb because you can't read out loud during your reading sessions, and you're stumbling with words, or all these insecure feelings of insecurities start bubbling in you, and in that experience. And I've had the fortunate, when I don't say for I had a couple of Japanese teachers at an elementary, and they were super cool, super patient. And I feel really bad for one of them, Mrs. Watanabe. If you're listening out there, I sincerely apologize. But I was a little bastard with her, and I made her cry. In During our parent teacher conference, we had this little kid, Latino kid, who looked, white, white complexion, and super articulate, spoke Spanish perfectly, and spoke English very well too. And he was translating for my mom, and I was there. And I remember parent teacher conference, and that little kid, man, I wanted to choke him out, because he was saying everything that Mrs. Watanabe said, that how disruptive I was, and how I wanted everything now, me. That little kid, dude, I forgot his name, but he was articulating every single sentiment, and behavior issues that I had, and I was bubbling inside, and I was like, I'm gonna sock this little bastard. But with that, man, Miss Watanabe broke down, and my mom and I, my mom was ashamed essentially, and I was like, fuck. And that's the moment I figured out, like, shit, it's not school, man. It's not about them, and that's all these emotions that I have. It's me. I have an issue. I'm the one with the problem, and I never forgot that. I never forgot the fact that I really made Miss Watanabe cry and break down, and essentially pleading with my mom to please get involved in my development and my support and helping me be a productive, non-disruptive elementary student. Essentially, this is like third grade or whatever it was. And I was self-conscious ever since, and part of me knew I had the power to break down people, at least namely teachers. So I carried that on unfortunately, from elementary through junior high. And I was always rebellious with talking back to teachers and authority figures, and that didn't go too well. But um, it was funny. Like, I knew back then that I had this dislike, this really hate for school, and
I think it
you
sounds
know,
like more like authority.
yeah,
Like
exactly,
you
authority,
have,
but exactly. But it was also my insecurities, and then, how dare you tell me I have a behavior problem, that I'm being disruptive, and then I have to now put some time in to change. And I think that was really difficult for me growing up. But that's essentially, in a quick nutshell, man, that um, there was that hate there. There was that like, I don't care, And meanwhile, I'm looking at my brother and my sister succeeding. It was just weird, They're students of Jaime Escalante, and I was probably in junior high, and it just didn't make the situation better, because here I was, partying it up and still hating school, and my brother and my sister are decathlon and what not decathlon? What do you call those?
Those
uh,
triathlons
Try
or
no, the academic.
the academic
yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it is what
It
you
is right.
said.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're taking all these AP courses, and they're doing very well in school, and I'm like,
So
fuck.
you're the black sheep.
Yeah, the academic black sheep. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just, it kind
Hey,
of sucked.
yeah,
It
but
kind
you
of
know what?
sucked.
Having examples as your older siblings that, like, I bet
Excelling.
you felt like you had to, absolutely
Yeah.
had to.
Exactly. And that,
yeah.
because of that, I had to rebel against that and say, I don't
Oh,
have to. I don't have to do that.
It was like, the standard was set like so high.
Mm-hmm.
It's like like Javi was saying, it's like, damn, dude, the pressure, and
Yeah.
like how do you,
How do you follow in those footsteps?
yeah, and just how do you, who are you within the mix of things,
Mm-hmm.
within the familial pecking order.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like, not necessarily, it wasn't
like you had no
necessarily
choice, sort
school
of.
that you
Mm-hmm.
hated, but more something.
Inside.
School just happened to be there, and that's the space that you rebelled in. But it seemed
Probably
like,
the path,
but it was like
like the
Mm-hmm.
something
path.
else,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think you mentioned, I mean, it was, just like, you know always, having to second guess yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
and having people second guess you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know but I think school does that for you. What about you, Javi? What was your experience?
It's funny how you said, Raul, that about the techniques that you would come up with to try to avoid going to school. Like what happened was that when I was in the third grade, my dad's brother from Mexico came over with his wife, and they stayed with us for, like, I don't know, like a few months.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife and my parents, both of them, they worked, and so what happened was that I don't know. I think the first time I actually did feel ill at school, that I went to the office, and the nurse says, "Oh, okay, well, you're not feeling well. Let's call home and see if somebody is there." And back then, you know what? Your parents didn't need to pick you up. I just called home. My tia Marta answered the phone, and then they said, "Oh, ¿sabes qué, señora? He's not feeling well. Um, is it all right if we let him go home?" She's all like, "Well, yeah, if he's not feeling well, let him go home." So I came home. And then I just got a light bulb. I go, oh. And you know what? Like for the next few days, I just started getting stomach aches or headaches or something like that because I knew that my aunt was gonna say like, yeah, if he's not feeling well, send him home, you know. And then by the time my dad got home, he didn't even know, he didn't even know that, or by the time my parents got home, they didn't even know that I had called from work, I mean from school to see, and my tia Marta, oh yeah, well, yeah, go ahead and come home. And I did that like for a week. I don't know why I did it so many days in a row. And then after that, my dad said like, no, no cabron, because then he came home. I didn't think my aunt, I don't know why I thought my aunt wouldn't tell my dad, I mean, I just, but obviously she told my dad, and my dad's like, by the time my dad came home, was out there playing baseball with my siblings and cousin and stuff like that. He's like, oh, you don't look sick to me. He's like, don't do that again. And I'm like, all right. And it just stopped. But I'm just trying to remember, like,
But it's funny how we as kids, we don't think about our lives that far ahead. We just think of the moment.
yeah.
We think about the moment, like how can we
Yeah.
get out of a situation, and then let it be. We don't think about, oh, my tia's gonna top my dad, or
Yeah.
there's consequences, or I'm actually gonna get caught.
I just thought, oh shoot, it worked the first time.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
try it again. So the next day I called my tia Marta, said, yeah, sure, come home.
Yeah, but
And
you know
then
what?
after,
I was gonna say, unless you're a psychopath like me, that you actually poison yourself to to not go to school, so that way they don't question you and you stay home.
yeah.
And that's when, like, for me, I never really hated school per se, um, but I just loved life, and for me, my life has been, full of constantly moving, whether it's moving from one state to another, from one city to another, from different houses, in different neighborhoods. Um, and that, I didn't know at the time, but that planted a seed in me, that I loved to travel, even if travel meant ditching school, getting on my bike, and riding my bike from my high school to Marina Del Rey, or to Venice Beach, or to Manhattan Beach, and I would just ride my bike, and I was loving life, man, and
Freedom.
yeah, man, and being a dumbass that I was, I didn't, like, oh, my mom's never gonna find out, and she never told me, directly, but my mom was, indirect. He's like, mijo, you know, I really want you to really focus on school, this and that, you know, and I'm like, okay, mijo, I mean, okay, mama, I'll go ahead and, and do better in school. Um, and she basically, without me knowing at the time, she basically punctured my tires, so I couldn't, you know, and then I'm all like, I'm gonna take my bike, and then I notice, oh wait, the tire, it's and because I was running late, I couldn't take couldn't take my bike, and let me flash back. I was living in East Los Angeles at the time, and I was commuting to West Los Angeles to go to school because my brother, we moved from West LA to East LA, uh, 1 year before my brother was going to graduate from high school. So it was really important for him to graduate from
Yeah.
from the West Side High School
Where he was going.
where he was
Yeah.
going, because
That's
he
fair.
wanted to end it off there, and he
Yeah.
understood. And at the time, I didn't, not things like that weren't clicking for me, but for him, he was like, he wanted to make sure he was graduating from a really good high school in order to go to college, because he's my brother's literally a rocket scientist, today,
Literally.
literally, so he's quite the smart dude, so he wanted to graduate there, so from his alma mater, in West LA, and And my mom asked me, is that cool? And my brother and I talked about it. I'm like, yeah, man, I'll support my brother. And at the time I didn't, I did not know what commuting an hour and a half each day back and forth, basically 3 hours a day meant. But I'm like, hey, he's my big brother. I'll go ahead and do it. And then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take advantage of the situation, and I'm gonna take my bicycle, and I'm just gonna say, see you later, school. I'm just gonna go and enjoy life. And
Go to the beach.
yeah, to the beach, man. And so what ended up happening, and it was like years, decades after, my mom and I were talking, and she's like, "Mijo, when you and your brother were going back and forth from East LA to high school, yeah, yeah, I know that you weren't going to school." I'm like, "What?" Like, yeah, like, well, what are you talking about, mom? It's like, "Mijo, don't play dumb with me." and
Yeah, I cut you
and this
red-handed.
and this is like like
You're trying to deny it
and this is
still.
and this is a 30-year-old man now, not a 13-year-old kid. Like, what, mom? I'm all like, no, no, no.
You're still trying to lie about it.
Well, I wasn't lying. I just wasn't
Oh
necessarily
yeah, yeah,
acknowledging the truth.
yeah.
You know,
Denying
and then
it.
she's all like, "Mijo, tu cara." It was all red. It was red, mijo. You see, you know, because you're güerito, you burned, mijo, and you were sunburned, mijo. I'm like, oh man, and then and it's funny because I can imagine, when my mom told me that my face turned red out of out of just sheer like shame. I'm like, oh shit, man, my mom knows, and it's funny. I reverted back to like my high school days, like, oh mom, I'm sorry,
Rocky
I
did
didn't
it
mean
too.
it.
Try to divert the attention.
So for me, at least at that time, I didn't hate school. I just, I actually really liked school because I was learning. I was, and it wasn't until I moved to East LA and then I saw the very stark differences between the schools in the West Side and the schools in the East Side.
And now, a brown and proud PSA. Don't let fear or shame hold you back from earning your education. Learning is a lifelong process, and no one can take that away from you.
In the West Side, it was predominantly middle class, upper middle class. In the East Side, it was predominantly, lower working class folks. And it was in the West Side, it was, European Americans and a mixture of, Asian Americans and whatnot. And on the West Side, it was predominantly Chicanos, first generation Americans, or United Staters, as I call us. And the educational system was inferior, in my eyes. I mean, in my one year of high school in West LA and in my junior high, because back then they still called it junior high, I learned more in junior high and my 1 year in high school than I did in the 3 years that I was at Garfield. And that's what pissed me off. Not hated, but it pissed me off. So so that's, and Javi, can attest to this. I mean, I said, after the first year, I said, what the hell, man? I mean, I'm not learning anything here. It's boring, and why be in school? And it wasn't because I hated school. It's like I loved learning so much that even as a teenager,
You were disappointed.
well, as a teenager, I realized that, dude, if I keep on going to school, my education is going to go downhill. I'm going to learn to hate school, literally hate education. I don't want that, and I would like there was this literature class. I would only go once a week, dude, but I would read because I loved reading, and I would go in once a week, usually half drunk. and
Yeah, I remember.
and and I would break down whatever we were reading. And I would break it down from a social, historical, political perspective, this and that, And the teacher loved me. She hated, or I didn't want to say hated. She didn't like the fact that I didn't show up every day, but she liked the fact that I was the only one that basically would
Right.
participate, And the kids in my class, they're like, "Who's this punk, man? He thinks he knows it all."
Like Mark told me that one time that you told the teacher, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what class was
Oh,
that.
that was in a history class, man.
Yeah,
And
and then you
and
stood up there and they gave
yeah,
you think you know better? They gave you the pointer thing. Is that what? And then Mark told me the story. Like, I mean, he told me the story like when we were in high
yeah.
school, like that during lunch. He's like, man, Ruben went up there and started lecturing the class.
Yeah, and that was another incident, because I was like, dude, I'm wasting my time, man. And that's why we would go, Javi, and Raul, you can attest to this during high school, dude. We would go to our ditching parties, man.
Yeah, all the
We
time,
would
yeah.
we would find someone's car and go, go wherever, whether go to the beach or go to
Yeah.
Turnbull Canyon or whatever,
Yeah.
and just live life, because I'm like, you know what? If they're not
It
gonna
was a
help,
waste of time.
Mhm.
yeah, if they're not gonna help educate me, then I'm just gonna basically educate myself in the class of life. And it wasn't until a little later that I began to understand uh, what was going on, and for me, and this is where I began to not hate but dislike the educational apparatus with a passion. I learned about tracking. If you're from a more affluent part of town, or the pigmentation of your skin just happens to be a little lighter, you would get better resources. You would get the opportunities to go on field trips to local universities, local colleges. And if you were from the east side or the south side, you didn't get those opportunities. If you're not afforded the resources as an educator as well, obviously the student is going to have it. But you know what they did have, you know, the schools had a lot of mechanic classes, mechanic
Yeah,
shop,
I
welding
remember.
and
I
all
like
that.
that. I like
And,
that.
and nothing against that, but it's like, what are they basically saying? That, you know what? Because you're brown, you're good at being a manual laborer. Nothing at all wrong with that, believe me. But if that's all that they offer you, they don't offer you the opportunities of going to a higher education, or going to technical schools, to learn, a trade, like,
Well, you know
the
what?
computer science trades or
We
things
all
like
went
that.
we all went to the same high school. Okay, I mean, I went to, and really in Garfield's defense, it's like I really like the automotive class. I mean, and then I also took electronics, and I also took metal shop. And you know what? I don't know if they offer those classes anymore, but really what I learned in those three ROP classes or something like that, they used to call them, I mean, it's like to this day, I still use it
So there's value in that, but speaking
in
about
those workshops.
yeah, speaking about tracking, I never really was conscious or self-conscious about tracking, but I did experience the once I came with my attitude, I did experience the teachers of like, okay, dude, Mr. Badass, you be okay, tough guy. That's cool. We're gonna disengage ourselves from you because you're a little punk. And I felt that, and I had to make adjustments. So by the time I got to high school, junior high school, I no longer hated that was
Hey, Raul, so you were a cabron since you were in
yeah,
elementary.
yeah, and not necessarily hated, but it
Just a
was
disruptor.
no a disruptor, but it was more of at that point I replaced that hate with like, shit, I love high school, in terms of the social aspect of it. That's where I came to terms. I had the best years of my life in terms of social, right? Excluding now as a father and a
Up
husband,
until
right?
that point.
But up to that point, I by the time I got to Cal, I had experienced a lot. Shit, I partied my behind off. I did so much, and it was so much fun. Um, and I think
Because you
that's
probably started since you were 15 or
yeah,
something like
exactly,
that. And
exactly.
then
And
when you go to Cal, like
it's
the
like
kids are
I
barely learning
barely
to
learning
party.
to binge drink, and I'm like, been there, done that,
Yeah.
but you see, what's funny is by I evolved in terms of my dislike for academics to my love and joy for academics, right? And it was through East LA College before I transferred where I became inspired. And I said, shit, I can actually do this, you know? But um, the tracking part of it, it really never set in while I was in high school. It was only years later when I became a little bit more social politically conscious that I thought about, shit, that's true, you know? It sucks, you know, you don't have the resources. You're not gonna get the academic preparation, or you're gonna have very limited options. And that stuff is real. And it continues to this day, you know, in South LA or just on the east side or the other side of the tracks, wherever major city you're in. Unfortunately, there's still some of that happening. So a lot of us brown men, or brown kids back then, right? You know, as we're kids, we're growing up and we're being tracked, and sometimes we don't even know we're being tracked. I always felt like I I, I wasn't getting tracked academically. I wasn't getting tracked through the trades. I was just kind of floating around and disconnected in high school. So because I felt there was that weird void, I created my own social void, and I thrived in that void because I loved it. And to this day, you know, I look at back, it's like nostalgia. It's like, damn, I loved the social interactions of and opportunities of friendships and the parties and, you know, all of that stuff. You know, I used to party Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday barbecues. You guys remember the Sunday
Yeah,
barbecues,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Las
You know,
tardeadas
all that
and
stuff, you
stuff
know,
like that.
and
Yeah.
you're a little young vato, you know, coming up, a little young dude. Um, and and it feels good, you know, because you have a lot of like-minded friends who are we're all thinking we're growing up and we're drinking beer and we're
And
all
then
like
your body is so young that it
young.
recovers by Monday. By Monday,
Yeah,
you're like
yeah,
fresh.
exactly. You know, we didn't understand, you know, Cruda and all that stuff. And you're, you know, and again, mind you, you're 17, 16, 17, 18 years old
Getting
and getting
pedo.
pedo every single day, almost every single day, but at least living it up and not worrying about school. So for me, this idea about school, it's still very much alive in terms of an overall dislike, I guess, but early on was a very passionate hate, you know, and then it evolved to a dislike, and it just evolved. And now, like, shit, look at me, you know, here I am, Mr. Graduate, and I'm proud to be a nerd, you know.
So, like for me, what happened was I went to private school up through the ninth grade. And my private high school, I remember in the ninth grade, it's like the kids, we would compete against each other to see if we could make the dean's list. The dean's list was like a GPA of 3.5 or better. And after that, the dean would put the list outside his door. Here are the people that made it. Did I make it? Did I make it? Oh, I didn't make it. Yes, I made it. You know, the kids, it was
That's cool.
competition to try to strive to get better to, and like people like, maybe next semester or quarter or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like, oh yeah, are you going to make the dean's list? And like, I remember it was very competitive to try to get good grades,
But
you
you
know.
don't teach us that, our parents and the school, and well, at least growing up, right? I'm sure some of that stuff is taught, but in my experience, it's like the competitive nature of academic success or
Yeah,
excelling in academics, it wasn't there, you know. It's
I
presented
think
in
you
a different way.
based from what you told me, I mean, I feel like if you should have felt that pressure, I mean, from
I did, yeah.
having your older siblings,
Yeah,
you know.
you know, it's funny, Javi, and that's exactly what happened. Fast forward, East LA College. I said, F that.
Yeah,
I put on my big boy pants.
los pilas, te pusiste
Yeah,
las
me puse las
pilas.
pilas, right? So I supercharged my brain and I cut a lot of people out of my life. I had a
Yeah,
lot of,
you know
I
what?
mean,
A lot like
mhm,
I always just say, tell my
boom.
parents, it's not my friends. I make my own decisions, but really,
It was, yeah, your circle of friends.
You know, but
So,
we're influenced by the
exactly,
yeah,
by our
exactly.
friends, by our
yeah.
Yeah.
sphere. You know,
And that's a lesson I'm learning at ELAC and in academia, right? You surround yourself with some good people in academics and shit, you're going to thrive.
Yeah. Because
yeah, you know,
I remember when I went to Garfield, then after that, a friend from our circle of friends that I was with at the time, Hey, look at my report card. I got all the F's. And he's all proud. He was all proud. He's all like, look, I got all the F's. And I was all like, I was in the 10th grade. It's like my first year there. And I was all like, it was just like a total culture shock. You know, it's like I come from a school where everybody's trying to strive to get, like, compete to get, let's see who gets the best grade. And then this guy's all flaunting his report card that he got straight F's. And it was just like,
It's mind blowing. But you know what? It
yeah.
goes back to the point that we were talking about earlier, at least for me, where I looked at my brother and my sister once I was transferring to Cal, to UC Berkeley, and I was like, in my mind, I'm going to do everything in my power to be the best academic student. And I was, I did really, really well, not to toot my own horn, but I did it because I had initiative, drive, and a huge desire to outshine my brother and my sister. And I still needed some sort of acceptance there. That was, my little psychological trip there. But nonetheless, when the kids, would be like, "Hey, let's go party, let's drink." I had my circle of friends who would party, but I like, if they're gonna party at 1 a.m. on a Tuesday and you have a final on Wednesday, I'm like, "See you later." Ah, come on, like.
Dude, you changed,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. Or I know, right? And for me, I was cool with that. I was like,
¿Cómo has cambiado?
I know,
¿Cómo has
right?
cambiado, cabrón?
and that's what I'm saying. It's like you look at your evolution, and then you're at a new space, and you have the courage to change and thrive.
Yeah, and that's that's the thing. The courage to change and drive, and maybe something in life gives you a kick, to shift your mindset. Like like for me, um, I only had one day where I was officially a senior in high school, because I flunked most of my classes, and not because I couldn't academically achieve it. I just was never in school. I was out partying and all that. And it finally hit me in my second 11th grade, when I realized I was not going to be a senior and I wasn't going to be able to graduate on time, and I was basically told by one of my counselors that, you're not gonna graduate. Might as well just drop out right now. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, dude, you're my counselor. You should like be wanting
That
to
really
help me,
pisses me off, man, because we have a friend that the counselor told him that, and he actually followed through. Because I asked a friend, I told him, I go, why did you drop out of school? It's like it was so much fun, and even just to go check out the chicks. Even like my other friend, the one with the straight F's, and then he's like, what? My counselor told me that my best bet would be just to drop out of school, take some trade classes, and yeah, which is dumb advice. I
You know
would
what?
go kick that.
Yeah, and we can talk about that.
that's part of the tracking right there.
Yeah.
And that you're living up to the expectations of society. And for me, I'm like, when I got that, it was the complete, for me, in my mind, it was a complete opposite. I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm going to graduate. And the only reason I'm going to graduate is not for my own ego, but it's going to be for my mom. My mom came here to the U.S. to give my brother and I a better chance, a better opportunity in life. And I'm not going to be that stupid idiot asshole who just drops out because he's afraid. So my last year of Garfield, I literally went to two morning classes, the regular six classes, two evening classes, and two Saturday classes. Hell, if they would have given me credit for going to Sunday school, I would have went to Sunday school too. And on top of this, I was working like about 25 hours a week, But for me, it was like, I'm not gonna do this to my own mom. She deserves better than this,
I
and
agree.
that's why I did that. And then the tracking aspect, yeah, I graduated. And I took all these classes just to graduate. And the first job out of high school was at a warehouse, in the city of Commerce. And and I remember I
RPS.
would and I remember I would either walk to work, or ride my bike or whatever. and I saw how the Latinos in the warehouse were being treated by the European Americans in the office, and I was like the go-between dude. I was, I was like 18 years old, didn't know any better in theory, but I could speak Spanish, so I would basically tell the warehouse workers what needed to be done, and I would have to clean up the words, because I'm like, that's being disrespectful. You don't talk to that anyone that way, So I would just clean it up. Oh, they want us to do this,
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
they understood English as well. They just couldn't speak it very well, So they understood, And I'm like, yeah, this is where Garfield got me right here. Fuck this shit, and that's when I
Mm-hmm.
made a decision to go to ELAC,
Mm-hmm.
because my brother proved that it can be done. He went to ELAC, and then he transferred to UCLA. So I'm like,
I
wow,
remember
it can
going
be
to his
done.
graduation. I remember going to your brother's graduation at UCLA.
Yeah, and in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to be working warehouses the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be treated like a second class citizen, and I want better for myself. Once
Mm-hmm.
again, my mom worked her butt off to
Yeah.
make sure that she would get better for myself. And
I.
in ELAC, like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, Raul,
Yeah.
that's the same thing. I'm like, I began to disassociate from certain people
Mm-hmm.
and reassociate with people that were there for me academically, and we all had a different level of consciousness, of awareness. Just like you, Ro, when I moved up to Santa Cruz, it was a very conscious decision. I'm like, yeah, I could stay in LA, go to UCLA or whatever. Um, and I could stay at home with my mom, and finish up my degree. But I'm like, nah, man, because if I stay in LA, only bad things are going to come out of it. I need to get out of here, and I need to learn about myself, because you can't learn about yourself if you stay in the same place, and if you're still underneath the wing of your parents. I'm like, nah, man, I need to get out of here. And I did, man. I flourished. I mean, from going from the inner city to a hippie town, next to the beach, and on a hill and everything. I mean, I just flourished, man. And the same thing, like by the time I transferred to Santa Cruz, I was like what 23, I think, or something like that, or 22, or something like that. So I already experienced all the shit, because same thing, because I've been partying
Mm-hmm.
since
Mm-hmm.
since I was like 13, 14 years old. So I'm like, all this shit, like, it didn't mean anything. And I was like, quote unquote, older, more sophisticated, and I realized, shit, I need to focus on my
Mm-hmm.
school,
Mm-hmm.
man. Because I
You
don't
need
want
to
to end
catch
up,
up.
I don't want to end up back in the hood.
And you did well. I mean, I think that's what's part of growing up and maturing is figuring out that you're responsible for your own actions and you're the captain of your own ship.
Flash forward now, we all have kids, different ages. And what are we going to say, or what have we already said, when the time comes
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
our mijitos or our mijitas come up and say, Papi, I hate school.
You know what, man? I'm a freaking hypocrite because my son is there already and he's in kindergarten and he's all school is boring and he gets into his little grumpy mood and I want to laugh in my head. I'm actually cracking up in my head and I'm looking at the good Lord, thinking to
You
myself,
see yourself through
yeah.
him.
And I'm like, thank you, Lord, for giving me this challenge today. Now, how am I going to deal with this? But yeah, I'm a total hypocrite. I like, son, academics is the number one thing that you can do. It's one of the best things that society that offers. Like, you never you stop learning. When you read, when you learn, you go through academics. Like, son, it's the foundation for everything. It's like I make a very conscious effort to talk to them about, this is the beginning. You're going to be in school all your life. You're going to look at elementary, junior high, high school, college, and then, graduate school or beyond. And he's like, I don't care. It's boring. It's boring. And like, and again, I'm cracking up in my head. I'm like, gracias, thank you. These are the cards I'm dealt. This is like I put my mom through hell early
I
on.
was gonna say, I don't know if they
You know,
ever told you this. Your parents like,
yeah,
lo que
totally,
tú me
man.
haces a mí,
Uh-huh.
tus hijos se lo van a hacer
Mhm.
a ti.
Totally,
Mhm.
exactly. And so
Tenfold.
so it's happening to me right now, and I'm I'm struggling with making sure he's learning his sight words, especially now during the stay home in terms of the pandemic. How do I do academic enrichment? How to support that? And it's hard, man. It's hard because I'm not a teacher. I'm not a natural elementary teacher, so it's difficult. But as a parent, it's like, what do you say? That's I don't have a magic bullet. I don't have an answer for that. But I guess my only response with my child is to acknowledge and say, you know what, I remember hating school, but now, I love school, and your mom and
You
I,
understand the importance.
yeah, I understand the importance. Goes, I try to break it down like it's normal to dislike school. It's normal to not want to go to school because it's boring or whatever. But once you become wiser, and of course he's like, well, what does wiser mean? And I just have to break that part. He's pretty bright. So
Well,
so yeah, I mean,
hey,
Let's
I'm
say,
man,
hey, bud,
yeah, yeah,
that's
wiser.
yeah,
that's
but
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
it's a good
Yeah.
thing, and it's funny because I'm stuck dealing with with that question almost every day.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Luckily, my kids like school pretty much for the most part. But really, what I tell them is when they hate homework. Well, one of my sons hates homework the way that I used to hate homework. And I remember just saying, why can't I'd rather stay an hour later and just get no homework? Because when I leave school, I just want to be able to do whatever I want.
Freedom.
Yeah, exactly. I,
Freedom.
and eh, and so you know what I really say is like, you know what, life is not fair. It's just when they say like, why it's not fair, it's not fair, like, why do I go, life is not fair. And the earlier you learn that, the easier it's going to be for you.
My son, when he was, well, my son's 17 years old now, but when he was in third grade, he had a hard time. He school learning just never came easy for him. It's still challenging for him. One thing his mom and I did. I mean, we're like, you know what? We're gonna work as a team to make sure that he learns how to learn. For me, the benefit of higher education was learning this stuff. Things that weren't taught to me. From my parents, because well, one of my parents wasn't around. Two, my mom was usually working one or two jobs. So they didn't have the tools to use to help my brother and I. So I do, I did, and I learned those skills, and I have those tools. So I use them. It begins at home. I always say everything begins at home, man. And I practice the preach. And I remember my son told me, Dad, I just feel so bad that I don't know how to read because you love books
Oh man.
and I want to make you proud. Dude, I almost broke. I didn't break down right there, but dude, I'm like, inside I was breaking up. I'm like, oh, he loves me that much, man. And I'm like, mijo, don't worry about me. I will always love you, and I will always be proud of you. As long as you put in 100%, 110% effort, I'll always be proud of you. You are the first teacher in your child's life. And are you willing to take the time and make the time and live up to your propaganda that your family is the top priority? And if they are, then you'll find time to not watch TV and spend some time
Hmm.
with your child.
Yeah,
You
that way
know,
they don't grow up hating school.
yeah,
And that's part of what this topic is about, is our growth, right? And different learning styles, and learning that it's not all about hating school. I think the fact that we're able to grow and be able to see ourselves continue on a trajectory of learning and reading, whether it's a certification program or a bachelor's degree in your 50s, the fact that you're actually doing something and being conscious about sharing your experiences and your lessons with your children, that says a lot, you know? Compas out there, did you hate school and what are you doing today?
If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe to our podcast and give us a 5-star review. It really means a lot and would really help out this podcast.
We invite you to visit us at loscompaslounge.com to share your ideas and suggest topics for future episodes.
Until next time, compas, be proud and be brown.
That's right. Be safe.
Till next time.